Have you ever wondered what really goes on inside a classroom in a completely different culture? It's so easy to have assumptions, right? But how do researchers actually get to the truth of the matter? Well, today we're doing something a little different. We're not just going to look at the findings of a study on Indian mathematics classrooms, we're going to peel back the curtain on the process itself. We're going to follow the methodological blueprint that made the entire thing possible. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the initial puzzle, the big question. Then we'll look at the philosophical and technical tools the researchers chose. We'll see how they pieced together all these different data points, how they analyzed them to find hidden patterns, and finally, how they built a rock-solid case for why their findings are so trustworthy.
Every great study really does start with a great question. And in this case, the question was pretty fundamental. What are the key characteristics of teaching math in India? And more importantly, how much of that is actually shaped by the culture itself?
This was the starting point, the initial idea. The hypothesis was that culture isn't just some vague background noise, it actively shapes a teacher's beliefs and a student's attitudes. And as you can see, this model suggests those two things then directly impact what actually happens in the classroom, the real nitty-gritty of teaching and learning. The model even leaves open the possibility that culture can have a direct impact, kind of bypassing beliefs and attitudes altogether. Okay, so with that big question in hand, the researchers faced a really critical choice. Which lens should they use to look at the classroom? And this wasn't just a practical decision, it was a philosophical one, almost like a battle between two major research approaches. On one side, you've got the quantitative approach. It's all about objective rigor, big numbers, and findings that you can apply broadly. It measures and correlates. But on the other side, there's the qualitative approach. And its goal isn't to just measure, it's to understand, to get at the process, the meaning, the sheer complexity of it all. For this study, trying to grasp the nuances of real classroom life, the qualitative approach was, hands down, the winner.
And I love this quote because it just illustrates the mindset perfectly. A qualitative researcher is like a choreographer, mixing set routines with creative, on-the-spot improvisation. They aren't locked into just one way of seeing things. And that kind of flexibility is absolutely essential when you're trying to capture the rich, holistic, and often unpredictable reality of a living, breathing classroom.
So, the philosophical lens was chosen. Next up, the technical tool. To truly see what was happening without any bias, the researchers needed an unblinking eye. And that meant a sophisticated video protocol designed to capture truly authentic behavior. Now, what's really cool here is how this shows an evolution in research methods. An older study, the Tim's video study, only videotaped one single lesson per teacher. Now think about that. What's the risk? Well, the teacher might put on a special show for the camera, right? It's not their normal day. In contrast, the protocol used here, from the learner's perspective study, completely solved that by recording 10 consecutive lessons. By lesson 3 or 4, trust me, everyone just forgets the cameras are even there, and you get pure, natural behavior. Plus, using 3 cameras instead of 2 gave a much richer picture.
So how did this 3-camera setup actually work? It's pretty clever. One camera was locked on the teacher, another got a wide shot of the whole class, and a third zoomed in on 2 specific students. A live mixer then created this composite split-screen image. And here's the genius part. That combined image was then used in interviews to jog a student's memory about specific moments in the lesson, which allowed them to get incredibly detailed, in-the-moment feedback.
And ultimately, this is why video is just so powerful for research. A live human observer, well, they might miss a crucial detail. Or maybe they just focus on the things that happen most often. But video? It's an unblinking, totally unbiased record. It gives researchers the unlimited ability to go back, revisit a moment, replay it, and analyze it from all these different angles. It ensures that absolutely nothing gets missed.
Okay, so having a great video record is one thing, but how do you make sure your interpretation of that video is accurate? Well, you don't rely on just one source of information. You build a 3-dimensional picture using this really powerful technique called triangulation.
To put it simply, triangulation just means you don't look at something from only one angle. You look at it from many different angles to get a clearer, more reliable picture of what's really going on. It's a core technique for adding some serious rigor and depth to qualitative research. And just look at all the different angles the researchers used here. I mean, it wasn't just the videos. It was 3 separate interviews with the teacher, 26 different interviews with students, plus questionnaires, the researchers' own field notes, and even copies of the students' classwork and homework. By combining all of these sources, you can cross-verify your findings and get a much richer, more textured understanding. Now here's the really crucial point, the part that might surprise you. Triangulation isn't about finding one single perfect truth. Sometimes the different data sources are going to contradict each other, and that's not a weakness. In fact, those inconsistencies are fascinating. They are opportunities for deeper insight because they show you the complexity of the situation from all these different competing viewpoints.
All right, so you have this mountain of rich, complex data from videos and interviews and notes. How in the world do you make sense of it all? Well, you don't go in looking for things to confirm a theory you already have. Instead, you let the theory emerge from the data itself. And this is an approach called grounded theory.
You know, the traditional scientific method is often deductive. You start with a hypothesis, and you look for data to prove or disprove it. The risk, though, is that you end up trying to force your round data into these neat, pre-made square categories. The inductive approach of grounded theory does the exact opposite. You start with a clean slate, you immerse yourself in the data, and you just allow the categories and patterns to emerge naturally from what you're actually seeing.
And this is what emerged from the data. Through watching the videos over and over again, these 7 micro-level characteristics started to appear as recurring patterns. Things like a heavy emphasis on oral repetition, on memorization, on really precise language. These weren't things the researcher went in looking for, they were patterns that the data itself revealed. But the analysis didn't just stop with identifying these traits. Using specialized software, the researchers then actually quantified them, measuring how often each one of these things appeared in the classroom. Because, as this quote says so well, to truly understand the world, you need both, the rich description of words and the clarity of numbers.
So we've walked through the whole process, the philosophy, the tools, the analysis. The final piece of this blueprint is making sure that the end result is credible, reliable, and just plain trustworthy.
And let's be honest, a common criticism of qualitative research is that it can be subjective. I mean, after all, the researcher is the main instrument for collecting and interpreting all the data. So how do we really know we can trust their perspective? Well, the answer lies right in the rigor of the blueprint we've just gone through. First, triangulation. By using all those different data sources, the study wasn't just relying on one person's observation. And second, having a strict, codified, and repeatable procedure for analyzing the data ensures the findings are systematic, not just a matter of someone's personal opinion. And here is the proof in the pudding. To test for reliability, another qualified teacher was brought in to double-check the coding of the data. And the result? An 88% agreement rate between the two coders. That's a powerful quantitative piece of evidence that really demonstrates the rigor and reliability of the whole analysis. So, we've just seen the incredible, meticulous detail that goes into understanding just one classroom. It really makes you think, doesn't it? The lens you choose, the tools you use, the way you analyze everything, they don't just find the reality. In a way, they help shape it. And it leaves us with a much bigger question. How much of what we think we know about anything is really just a reflection of the blueprint we used to build that knowledge in the first place?